This is such a true story. I went to lunch with a friend yesterday, and I was like, I'm really nervous about tomorrow. I really am. This is not my thing, the whole public speaking thing either. And she was like, you'll do fine. But I'm like, I've had the worst 2 weeks. I'm exhausted. She's like, that's perfect. She's like, when you're exhausted, you have no inhibitions. So let me just tell you, I'm going to totally rock this because I'm freaking tired. So I also just want to say that this is like my, look, I made it moment, right? And unfortunately, my mom couldn't be here tonight because she had back surgery last week and she's doing very well, but she just couldn't make the trip. So I did just want to dedicate my time up here to my mom tonight. And I also wanted to dedicate it to my daughters in the audience because since you've come into the world, you have been my sunshines. You always will be my sunshine. So thanks for sticking it out tonight. Appreciate it. So this is, so you're going to hear a lot of buzzwords because I'm number 11 here, so all the words have been used. But this is probably one of the most vulnerable positions I've ever been in. And so I wanted to do a little exercise here with you first to just kind of kick it off. And I just want you to take a really good look at me. Don't judge me too much because I'm exhausted. But, what I'm wearing, what I sound like, how I'm presenting to you. And I want you to make some assumptions. And I know some of you know me, but it doesn't matter. Make some assumptions, make some judgments about me. And then I want you to just tuck that away somewhere and we'll come back to it later. And now I'm going to tell you a story. Picture it. Brooklyn, 1981-ish. I'm 3 years old, right around 3 years old. And we lived in this tiny apartment. So tiny, tiny 2-bedroom apartment. And if I went into my bedroom at the time and stuck my arms out like this, I could reach both walls on either side. It's got all the quintessential terrible late 70s stuff in it. It had a brown refrigerator and linoleum floor or whatever. But I just thought it was a castle. So my mom is a first-time mom. At the time, I'm an only child. And she's in her mid-20s, and she's just elated to have a little girl. So the minute I popped out and took my first breath, I had a dress on, I had nail polish on my nails. I mean, it was the whole thing. I had really long, longer than this, but just as thick and curly hair, and she used to brush it. Yeah, and it sounds exactly like it was. It was not pleasant. So the day finally comes, right? And I'm old enough to be enrolled in my first ballet class. And I'm going to tell you that I never asked to be in ballet. Nor do I think I ever did anything that would ever give my mother a clue that I wanted to be in ballet. But I didn't really know what was happening. I was super little. And so one day she gets everything together. She gets me, dressed. She gets the leotard, the tights, the shoes. My hair goes up and everything. And I'm sitting there all right, I don't know where I'm going. I have no idea. And we go to the first ballet class, and I had no idea what to expect. And I was pretty outgoing as a little kid, but I have to say, at that time in larger crowds, I was still a little shy. So here we are, and my mom walks in, and I open the door, and I walk into this classroom, and there are all these little girls flitting around in tutus and pink things, and I'm like, oh my gosh! I was like, oh my goodness. And I knew immediately that I really just didn't fit in there at all. And I didn't want to be there, and I kind of froze up. And I spent the entire class like this underneath my mother's chair. Seriously. Like, I don't remember a lot of things from my childhood, but I remember this. So, we don't say anything. We go home. I don't know. I'm 3 again, so every day feels like a year, and like every month feels like, I don't know, 5 years. So, we don't really talk about it. And then like the next week rolls around, and it's obviously time for ballet class again. So out comes all the accoutrement, the tights, the this, the that, and I'm like, I have to go back to the shit. And I'm like, yeah. So I didn't know. I'm like, oh my gosh, she's gonna make me go back. So she's getting everything on me, and everything's just itchy, and I'm just, everything's on. And I remember standing there in the kitchen, and I'm like, I don't want to go. And she looked at me, and I saw just all the blood drained from her face. All the visions of a prima ballerina now had just gone right out the freaking window. And she turned to me, and she said, "You're going." And so at that moment, I basically did what any 3-year-old would do, and I started to throw a tantrum. And I was crying and screaming and carrying on, and nothing was working, and it probably went on for about 15 minutes. But again, in my head, that was like, it was going on for hours now. And so finally, I realized that there was only one way I was going to get out of going to that ballet class. So I stood there in the middle of the kitchen, and I peed. I pissed through everything. And I only had one of everything. And my mother looked at me. I've never told this story this is they said, "Tell a story, Angela." I'm like, all right. So she looked at me, and she screamed at me on the top of her lungs. But then she never, ever made me go to that damn ballet class again. So I don't even know where the hell I am in these notes. I think I'm on I don't know. The end, just kidding. So you might be asking me, okay, Angela, this is great, it's funny and everything, but why the heck are you telling this story? And, what is so important about a girl peeing in her leotard? Well, I'm going to tell you. So it's the first time that this girl stood in her power. And it is the first time that I set a boundary. And it is the first time that I recognized discomfort, and I knew that I did not want to sit in it. As I continued to grow, actually, that's not true. So, well, kind of as I continue to grow. I wish that I could tell you that those 3 things, that was the attitude that stuck with me as I got older, but it's not. And as I grew, I recognized that I wasn't necessarily like the other girls. I liked to play with the boys at recess. I preferred pants over dresses. And my life was forever changed when my dad came home one day and bought me my first baseball glove. So, unlike the ballet attire that seemed to go over much better, and at some point my mom will watch this, so I do need to tell you that the whole ballet thing, it didn't turn me gay. That was a whole other story, so don't worry about it. It's fine. I can't. So as I got older, I realized that a lot of those things about myself weren't necessarily accepted, right? So society had certain norms And I didn't necessarily fit into them, and they didn't fit the person that I was becoming. It made me feel self-conscious, and I'm pretty sure I had some major imposter syndrome going on, because I most definitely wasn't a boy and I didn't want to be one, but I didn't necessarily fit in with most of the other girls either. And I'm pretty sure this played a role in my being shy, having a lack of confidence in myself, and a habit of setting poor boundaries just to make other folks happy. Decades later, as I sit here and reflect, I can now laugh about peeing in my leotard. But I'm also proud of that. That and the journey that has brought me here in front of you all today with enough confidence to tell that story and to also admit that even after all this time, I'm really still not that confident. However, there are many things I've learned along the way, and I really did want to share them here. Never let someone's opinions define you. If someone makes you feel bad for setting a boundary, get rid of them because they most likely shouldn't be in your life anyway. Wear the clothes that make you feel beautiful, even if you do look like Joan Jett at 11:30 at night at Cedar Crest College. Sit with yourself, listen to yourself, and above all, love yourself often. So there are a lot of themes here. I asked you at the beginning of our time together to look at me and make some judgments. And you took a good look at me, and you probably already read about me before you got here. You might know me, you might have saw my bio in the playbill. And I'm sure you thought you really knew a lot of things about me. And that's okay, because we all do that. And there's no right or wrong answer to this exercise. But what I wanted to do was, I wanted to prove the point that as much as we think we know how someone feels and how someone presents and how someone experienced life, we don't. The human experience is so special, but it's different for all of us. In this life, we spend so much time focused on the past, the future, and the people and the things around us, that we lose who we are and why we are. So if I have to leave you with one thing this evening, it's the request to truly know and love yourself. And for God's sake, don't be afraid to speak your damn truth. Because it's your truth, and no one can take that away from you. So be right here and right now, in the present moment. Be still with yourself. Take a moment to listen to your breath. Make a list about what you love about yourself. Now, this might seem light years away from the little girl in her leotard, but it's really not. That little girl knew who she was, what she liked, and told her mother exactly how she felt. And that, my friends, is the truest, most authentic human experience. Thank you.